maybe there are no other minutes for June. Maybe you had no special meetings or anything like that, you know. But if it can be identified from the request, then it needs to be responded to, you know, one way or the other. If it is a situation where somebody asks for something that cannot be identified, you should still fill out the form and deny the request for the reason that the document is not properly identified.
We could go back and ask them,
You could
possibly,
yes,
to identify it in a better.
Exactly, and actually that's what's encouraged, is some dialogue. Nothing prevents the township or a municipality from asking an individual, you know, for further information.
Clarification.
Yeah, you asked for this, and I don't understand what you're asking for.
Okay.
You know, and then have them, you know, put it in different words or whatever. And again, that form is, you could simply ask them to, here's the form, can you please be a little bit more specific and resubmit this to me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the idea is not to throw stumbling blocks in the path of the requester, but it is also not to just have the township officials running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to find stuff that they don't understand what's being requested. You know, I mean, it's counterproductive to waste your time doing that. So I would think you would want to, you know, basically have the document fairly well identified.
Right.
And you are not required to compile documents. You are not required to create documents. Okay, you know, what the Freedom of Information Act is designed to do is to ask for a document. Okay, you are not required to answer questions. Okay, that's a very common thing. You know, you get a FOIA request. Please tell me why the board voted 5-4 or 5-1, 4-1 to do this, or 5-0 to do this. That's not a FOIA request. You know. And that should summarily be denied. You know, that's an opinion, right? Yeah.
What happens if we've had a couple things where the request didn't get filled, mm-hmm. and then, you know, we get a note, the request didn't get filled in time, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Or something similar, I don't want to pay the fees, mm-hmm. you know, waive the fees. You know, how, and it comes to the board. So it's already been to the FOIA coordinator, and it next comes to the board. Mm-hmm. How does that process work? I mean, what actually do we do as a board when we have a problem with the FOIA coordinator and the FOIA person that's asking for something, and they have a disagreement? Then does the board have action, have a responsibility here?
Yes, under this policy you do.
Okay.
Okay, this policy provides that if a requester makes a request to the FOIA coordinator, then the FOIA coordinator either wants to charge too much or wants to charge something
or whatever
that the requester says is too much, they can appeal that decision to the full board.
Okay.
And there's a form for an appeal.
So we put that on like an agenda topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then the full board would hear from the FOIA coordinator and would also hear from the requester. And if the requester can't personally be there, the written appeal can be addressed.
Okay.
And so there, in two instances, an individual can appeal a determination of fees and a determination as to not providing documents.
Okay.
If the FOIA coordinator says, no, I'm not giving you those documents for this reason, and the requester doesn't think it's a good reason, then the appeal goes to the full board.
Okay.
Now, the reason to have that, and because obviously, if I make a request and you do not honor my request or respond to my request in a timely manner, I don't have to appeal to the board. Okay, I can simply go to the circuit court and sue you. Okay, and that tends to be expensive on both sides because the township has to be represented and the requester has to be represented. Now, if the township is wrong in terms of the decision, there can be attorney fees awarded against the township, Also, there are now civil penalties if that are built into the new FOIA law if it's found that you have been arbitrary and capricious in your determination, or if you have willfully violated FOIA. There's a new civil penalty that can be imposed on the township, which, interestingly enough, is paid to the Michigan Department of Treasury, not to the requester, okay? So if I request something and I take you to court and I prevail, I will get my attorney fees, but the state of Michigan will get a check from the township, which will not go to me, as the requester.
And we don't get a percentage.
Nobody gets a percentage of anything, right? Yeah. So the reason that I put this in here is I thought that was a reasonable thing to provide to a requester, that if there's a dispute and they're just not on the same wavelength as the FOIA coordinator, then come to the full board. The full board will look at it and try to make a decision as to whether the appeal should be granted or denied, or some compromise worked out. Can we work out a compromise here?
Is the situation where there is a pending FOIA waiting for monies to be paid,
right?
And that could go on for a year?
If they do not pay, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
keep it for a year, that request?
Well, under FOIA as it is right now, the new FOIA, if somebody has requested a prior request,
correct,
okay, and they have not paid for that request, you sent them the information, and the money has not been paid, then you do not have to provide them with a new FOIA request without full payment.
So that last one would have to be paid for and provided to the requester?
No, the new request would have to be fully paid for.
Oh, so we could let the old one just sit, but the new one would have to be paid for before it would be sent?
Well, normally what happens with FOIA is that somebody stiffs the township. Okay, you send me the documents and I don't send you the money. Okay. Under the new FOIA laws, if you have a situation like that and somebody has requested and has not paid, you do not have to provide them with new FOIA information unless they pay you in full prior to the delivery of the new information.
Oh, the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha.
Okay. People have any other questions about FOIA? John or Dennis? Kathy? Okay. Then we need a motion to accept the Mullett Township FOIA. The package we've got in front of us says the Mullett Township FOIA Guidelines and Procedures.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there support for that motion?
Go ahead.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I have a quick question. Are you going to clean up the copies, or do
Yes.
you want me to do it?
No, I'll clean up. You need to tell me the correct website and the fax number that you want.
Is that all you need?
That's all I need.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the lot issue on the Jim Haslott property. And Tim was going to come back to us with an opinion. Now, this is attorney-client privilege. Is that okay to be talking in this?
As long as you are, you can waive the privilege. So if you want me to talk about it, I'll be happy to talk about it.
Yeah. Is everybody okay with that?
I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'm going to sort of explain where I'm coming from on this. Okay. What was brought to the township board at your last meeting, as I recollect, was a drawing real similar to this, which had it actually had tax parcel numbers on these three lots that had apparently been proposed to be assigned to these three lots by the assessor. Okay. And my concern at that meeting was, and I didn't see this before your meeting, but Dennis or John or somebody was talking about platted, the subdivision, okay? And when I heard the word platted, I thought we better take a closer look at this. This property right here is unplatted, where the 3 lots are. And then this property down here, as I understand it, is actually an existing subdivision. Now, this property here, if it's 10 acres or less, would potentially be able to be divided 4 times if there haven't been land divisions on this property previously. And I don't know that for a fact. I have no idea if there were previous land divisions. But I'm assuming that Mr. Haslock would have at least 3 land divisions available here for these 3 lots. So if it was just simply a matter of dividing the 3 lots, I think that it would pass land division muster, because it appears that each of the lots do have some type of access here, and at least it looks like there's a Numbers Road on one side and Grand Boulevard on the other, so they have access. It doesn't violate the 4-to-1 depth to width ratio, and it doesn't appear that he's using too many land divisions as far as these 3 lots. But what caught my eye were these 2 12-foot strips that are at the back here. And in talking to the assessor, it appears that what was being contemplated here was that these 2 12-foot strips would be construed as a boundary line correction or adjustment. And a boundary line correction or adjustment is an exempt split under the Land Division Act. So there are a couple of instances where you have what are called exempt splits. You don't have to get permission. You don't even have to come to the township board. One is if you're splitting off more than 40 acres. So if I have an 80-acre parcel and I want to split it right in 2, I don't need to come to the township board. I can do that. It's an exempt split. On the other hand, if I have a piece of property that has a boundary correction that needs to be made, I can make that correction, and I do not need to get permission from the municipality either. A boundary correction, however, in my opinion, would be something like an encroachment. Let's say I build my garage over onto my neighbor's lot, okay? And so we discover in the process of whatever that my garage is on his lot. So he agrees to give me 10 feet of land to run behind my garage and then come back to the boundary line and, straighten it, just so that my garage now is fully on property owned by me. That's a true boundary line correction, in my opinion. You've got some encroachment or problem with the boundary line, or the boundary line comes right straight down through your driveway and bisects it, so you want to make sure the driveway is all on your property. If you are doing a boundary line correction, you don't need land division approval. So when I talked to the assessor about this, I guess the theory behind this was that these 12-foot strips would somehow be boundary line corrections. Mm-hmm. But I don't see that, okay? I don't see that at all for 2 reasons. One is, this isn't really a boundary line correction, in my opinion. Second of all...
And why is that not, Tim? Why would it not be a boundary? Because that seems like that's what he's doing.
Well, the problem is that these are platted lots.
I got it.
These lots are platted in the subdivision. And I haven't been advised by anybody that there's any encroachments or anything like that across these boundary lines that really require a correction, okay? And the problem is that when you do go about correcting a boundary line within a subdivision, you are sort of subject to other rules and regulations, one of which is that you've got to do a plat amendment. So if I truly wanted to expand my lots within a subdivision, I've got to file a circuit court lawsuit to do a plat amendment. Mm-hmm. So looking at this just on its face, without even getting into the issue of putting unplatted land with platted land, if you just add this up, there are 5, just on the face, there are 5 divisions here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is in excess of what I believe he would be entitled to. But if you go and you look at this as a boundary line correction where these lots are, where this is actually going to be added to these various lots, and I don't know if these lots are under common ownership or not, but if these are going to be added to these various lots, you could actually have as much as 7 more land divisions here, plus the 3 out in front. You could have up to 10 land divisions. Okay, then you get to the next issue, which is, can you put platted land with unplatted land under a single tax code number? Okay, I have researched this previously and wrote an opinion letter for a different township about 6 years ago, and found, and in that opinion letter, I specifically said you could not put platted and unplatted land together. That was based on research that I had done at that time, and I believe that that came from Cameron on real property. And I went back to try to locate that citation, and I could not find that citation. So I have actually talked to another assessor in the area, not because I'm trying to go behind Clayton's back or whatever, but just to, am I off base or am I on base here? And I was told generally you are not to put platted and unplatted land together. But I didn't take that as the gospel truth, so we contacted the Michigan State Tax Commission, and we spoke to a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Cleaver. And Mr. Cleaver discussed this and had said that he had put on a PowerPoint presentation on this issue previously, and he does not believe it is appropriate to combine platted and unplatted lands under one tax code number. The lots within the subdivision should have their own tax code numbers. Now, of course, they could be joined together. You could have 4 lots joined together under one tax code number, but you should not be then adjoining unplatted land in that same tax code number, because again, you've got platted and unplatted. So I don't think you can actually add the unplatted land to those individual lots legally. So
That would be, at face, would be an amendment of the plat.
exactly, and see, I think that the gentleman could get to that point if he wanted to file to amend the plat, and if he wanted to take this property here and add it into the plat and make those lots bigger or whatever he wants to do, I think that's perfectly appropriate, but that would require a circuit court action.
Okay.
So for those reasons, and I have not shared this letter with Clayton. I was going to send it to him tomorrow because we do have a difference of opinion on this. But for those reasons, I think this really should be denied. Now, if they come back with further information that we're not aware of in terms of, what the straightening of this boundary line or something like that, we can always look at it. But I just don't see this right here.
Okay. We last time tabled this for this meeting, his request his request for this land division. So I would, based on Tim's opinion, I would accept a motion to deny Mr. Haslak's property splits.
I'll make a motion to deny the land division request for Mr. Haslak.
Second?
I'll support that.
Any more discussion about it?
Okay, let me make sure this is down correctly. Motion to refuse requested land division
To deny.
by
To
Jim
deny.
Haslak.
Deny.
Motion to deny.
Mhm.
That's why I wanted to read it. Requested land division by Jim Haslak. Period.
Yeah.
Is that good enough?
That was
Is
what
that
he.
gonna work?
Yep.
That's what the motion was.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
motion to deny requested land division by Jim Haslak by
John
Second.
and Dennis.
And
So no discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks a lot for that work.
Thank you.
You do have 45 days to make that decision, so I think, and I'm taking it that his request was a matter of first impression at the board last time, so we'd be within a 30-day window right now. So on that denial, I think a letter should issue denying it, so that there's something in writing so the township is covered on it.
Yeah.
I talked to him yesterday, and I didn't know we were going to cover this tonight.
Okay, all right.
And
Yeah, I've not spoken to the gentleman, I've not spoken to any of his representatives.
Sure.
I've just looked at this based on what was provided to Clayton.
Yeah. So you take care of that, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk to Clayton? You're going to send.
I'm going to
Okay.
email this letter to Clayton.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're all done. Okay, the next topic is Woodruff Dock. Let me give you a little update on the Woodruff Dock. It's in. Hobie put it in, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But the dock, they had problems with getting the parts, which was why it took Michigan Lake Products extra time to get it. If we had gone with the new dock that we talked about last time, they would have had it in 2 weeks. But we went with the parts, and that's why they had it in when they had it in. And it's the day they got it down there was the day we put it in. So, I know people were upset, but can't do anything about parts. And
It's in now.
it's in and it's done. So thanks, Kathy. But here's what you asked me to go look at. This skid pier, which is a steel frame with a wood wedge shape. I'm learning a lot about docks, so you can tell me if I got it or not. I went and talked to Monty because at our last meeting, Brent gave me the names of Bear Township and Resort Township that had these skid piers in that were done by the DNR. And the people that put the skid piers in were Monty. Well, I called Monty, a guy named Josh, and then next day I talked to Vince, and they told me that we should go right to the guy that builds the piers. So I went to him. His name is Klaus. Oh man, what was his last name? Well, anyway, it was Klaus something. And he was, no. Okay, it was Clyde Wilkes. And he is from Northwood Products. This Klaus is another guy, who would build the pier, who has built the 2 skid piers and delivered them to Bear Township and Resort Township. I asked him approximately what the cost would be and I went with just 40-foot long, was because I didn't know at the time I needed to get 50-foot. And he told me it was $12,500 without the galvanizing of the steel. And he highly recommends the galvanizing of steel. He said that would add another $2,500 to $3,500. And he said it would. He could do it probably in about 3 to 4 weeks, just depending on how much he has. You have to go in. You take it in with a fork truck, and you pull it out with a forklift. It's how you do it, and you leave it close to the dock, close to the area where you put the dock in. Then he also told me that Resort Township, Resort Township, he thought got some money from a grant to do it. So I called this Klaus somebody. Sorry on all these names, but I spent a lot of time doing this. And he told me that they did get part of a grant through Fish and Wildlife, but it was for their dock and their boat ramp. It was something to do with the Indian, which we're not necessarily eligible for. So this was part of an Indian tribal thing that they did through Fish and Wildlife. So then I came back and I said, well, I've got as much information as I need. This dock is very expensive. It will last us for a lifetime. So, Clyde told me that, these things will, last 40, 50 years. I mean, but it's very expensive. And if you go to what we'd gotten originally from Michigan Lake Products, we got a cost for $6,900, which we got the discount, to do that Brock dock. And, you know, with the tan vinyl decking, 50 feet long, galvanized steel supports, and, you know, he said support system is anchored and braced to resist anticipated boat traffic. The deck system includes vinyl bumper around the sides, an end cap at the lake end, and 10 galvanized steel cleats for the boat tie-ups. And he told me, I talked to him the other day again, it would be 2 weeks from the time we ordered to get it. And, you know, I look at paying, it's probably going to be more than this because 40 feet was 12. I'm hunching it's going to be close to $20,000 for us to get a skid dock done at Woodruff. And I just think that's a ridiculous amount of money for us to spend, my personal feeling. And I think that we should, if we want to put the dock, take the current dock that we have, which is now fixed, and put a new dock in, a dock over here, which would be that current dock, and then get a new dock. I would recommend we go with the original proposal to get the Woodruff Street, what do they call this thing, the Brock dock. Now, that's, you know, that's what I've done. That's the work I've done. I think, you know, if somebody else wants to go try something different, fine, but, you know, I think based on the cost, I think we should just stay with, if we want to get a new dock, that's the big question first. If we want to get the new dock and move the dock over to Boy Scout Park, then we should go with the Lake Products dock, would be my recommendation. What do people think?
I'm visualizing this skid dock, 50 feet long,
It is 50, yeah.
pull it out of the lake and put it on the shore. And to me, that's an accident waiting to happen in the wintertime, especially with snowmobiles. That's going to take up the whole
It's going to